what do you see for going forward in the Chicago real estate market?
Yeah, well, that's a big question, Brian. And there's a lot of factors that I think we can look at. First of all, the COVID-19 pandemic really brought about some fundamental changes in home owners' personalities right now. When we were forced to really sort of hunker down and be inside of our homes, and we were working out of our homes, it gave everybody an opportunity to really look around and rethink the environment that they're in. So, we're really looking at this as a pretty permanent change that the pandemic brought about, was that people said, okay, I'm going to live here, I'm going to work here, even if not full time. It's likely that in the future I'll be working more from my home. And I want to make sure that I'm in the environment that I want to be in. And I think it's important to note that although it's been a long time, the recession of 08, 9, and 10 really affected people in the way that in some areas their home values never recovered from that point. And so people were very reticent to move. Well, then fast forward, the pandemic happens and people take a look and say, I'm going to spend a lot more time in my home than I thought before. And I want to really like where I live. Yeah.
Interesting. Well, and Tripti, so, I know that a lot of people are moving now. In fact, we're moving from one place to another. And it doesn't seem like the real estate markets are really slowing down. Why would that be, considering everything that's going on in the city with crime and all the other issues? Why are the real estate markets holding up?
Well, before I touch on that specifically, I'm going to add a little bit to your last question, which is why did things get so crazy during the pandemic, and they're continuing in terms of the real estate market. There's also, Laura touched on it, since the recession, there was a lot of pent-up demand. So we were on a trend even before COVID happened. The real estate market was probably going to get stronger, but all the moves that have happened in the last couple of years might have taken over a longer period of time. But a lot of people had wanted to move, and there was a lot of pent-up demand from a younger generation, people who were in their 20s that were either still living at home with their parents or still living with a roommate, or married and living with a kid in a small place. So all this pent-up demand would have come out, and there was not enough properties being built. So we have a big shortage of new homes. So that's what that created. So to answer your question of why are people continuing to move, that trend is continuing right now. And I think what you were touching on, specifically Chicago, why are people still moving to Chicago when all of this stuff is being heard? The press loves to exaggerate things that are going on, and I'm not going to take away from the crime issues and some of the other issues that are happening in the city of Chicago, but there's still a lot of things that have made the city a wonderful place to live. In early days of COVID, there was a thought that people would be living in the cities because they didn't want to live as close to other people. What we're seeing now, the city market has come around, especially the high-end market, is a lot of people who thought they didn't want to live near people really did. They didn't during the pandemic because they were afraid to be near people during the pandemic. But if anything, being away from them created a greater demand for interaction and things to do, and the activities and the culture and everything that's in the city. So the city is just as strong in some cases, depending on the neighborhood price point, as the suburban markets in Chicagoland. But all of them are strong, and we don't see an immediate slowdown because there's still a severe lack of homes for people to buy.
And if I could also jump in, thank you, Tripti. Another really important factor here is homeowner affordability and the interest rates that have been so low for so long. And yes, we're seeing a little bit of an uptick recently, but even with that, homeowner affordability still is at all-time highs. So we've had wages increase, interest rates, for the most part, holding relatively low in the historical context anyway. Interest rates at 4% are still crazy low. And so you've got a lot of buying power here that's also fueling this market. So like Tripti said, an undersupply, not enough building during the recessionary years, and then the pandemic and low interest rates and high homeowner affordability, all these factors together just really create a hot market.
Yes. Well, and you mentioned undersupply, and there are markets all over the country naturally in the markets where people are moving, dramatically, like Texas and Florida, Arizona. Those markets are on fire, obviously, and we've heard a lot about that. But it's even happening in Chicago, isn't it? And there's still so much happening. But one thing that the national real estate markets have identified is that people are trying to buy into newer properties as well. That there are older properties that are, we've always talked about tear downs. Somebody, we have a house that might be a tear down, right? And it's only about 27 years old. So people are wanting to tear old properties down and build new. So could it also be a sense that people want to buy differently? They want to buy newer things rather than someone's old house, possibly? Tripty?
Yeah. Definitely. That is definitely a big part of it, and that I would say pre-pandemic, there was a glut of properties that were older. It was hard to sell something that either wasn't new or felt new. If you had something that wasn't new, you had to make it feel new. We call it the HGTV phenomena. Everybody wants their property to look like the finished product on HGTV before they even buy it. But we've gotten to the point now that there's so much more demand for property than there is property, that people are willing now to buy some of the older homes. In some cases, tear them down. In some cases, with the idea they're going to fix them up. So in a way, this inventory shortage has helped those properties that weren't in tip-top shape or weren't brand new. It's enabled sellers to be able to sell those homes too. Although that's where we see a lot of buyer's remorse when there's multiple offers. There's so many properties sold under multiple offers, and oftentimes the number one buyer who quote unquote wins the property will end up doing a walkthrough and saying, wow, this needs a whole lot more work than I thought, and they'll back out because they made
really?
Yes, it's very common.